Hi there, so this is week 5 assignment 2 feedback from Michael, Lucas, and Samantha. I'm going to give feedback to consider for revision for week 5 assignment 2 and what to think about when moving into week 6's final. So what you want to do transitioning from week 5 to week 6 is continue to push the design principles and design elements that were outlined in your original proposal. So for example, if you said that you wanted to utilize overlap and diminishing size, you want to figure out a way to make that more dynamic in your composition and just really take bigger risks in between week 5 and week 6 to really sort of knock it out of the park for your final project. So Michael, let's start with yours. The harmonies are correct. Palettes look good as well. I would, on week 5 assignment 2, I would go in and just I would put my text cursor in between the colon and the C in complementary and hit enter so that they're stacked on top of each other, so that they all fit in that white, all the text fits in the white space of your artboard. As far as the design goes, it's coming along nicely. For week 6, I would like to see the relationship between positive shapes and negative shapes be a little bit more complex or more dynamic. Right now there's a lot of background and we want the foreground to really be the champion. So what I would think about doing is this sort of apple shapes, maybe they should be, this large in the composition. And then, let's take that off. Sorry, I'm working with a new mouse. It's a little tricky. So if you imagine, there we go, all of this area taken up with your apple shapes, and then the center shapes could be sort of in this area. You just want to make sure that the background is sort of a necessary component, but it's only taking up sort of minimal required amounts of area in the composition. You don't want it to be the major area that has the most visual weight in your design. Also in week 6, you want to expand your palette even further. So which composition, or excuse me, whichever harmony you choose, you want to maybe double the palette rather than 16, maybe moving to 32. I think that the tetrad would be the most interesting because rather than just having a transition in value, you could use a transition in temperature as well. So you could go from a red object in the background moving back to sort of a cooler object back here, so kind of playing around with color temperature to create the illusion of depth, as well as color saturation and value. So let's just take this off, zoom back out, and take a look at the next one. Lucas, so we have 2 tetrad harmonies. Both of them look correct on the palette. As I was mentioning to Michael, in week 6 you want to expand that even further, maybe creating 32 colors from your specific harmony, so more tints, tones, and shades from the chosen 4 parent hues. As far as the design goes, it's coming along nicely. I'd like to see the illusion of depth be even more dynamic. So I can imagine there being a very large tree here in the foreground, maybe one that's so big that it's cropped at the top and then at the bottom, and then allowing some smaller ones to kind of peek out from behind it, and the road can kind of snake in between. I wouldn't use these brush stamp shapes. That's one of the requirements in week 5, assignment 1's initial post, is don't use these preloaded shapes. They are a little too cookie cutter. I'd like to see you make those on your own so that they're more unique. And then the road. So this section here, the road going up the mountain in the foreground, is a little tricky. What you actually want to do is, let me just take those marks off and start some new ones. You want your road to kind of converge at a point, the road in the foreground. And then from there, maybe have it snake up the mountain like that, and then back across like that, all the while getting thinner. And then it would pick up, like you've done. But you want it to come to almost a converging point here at the horizon, and then sort of moving back and forth across the mountain. Otherwise, it's really flattening out that it makes the mountain look like it's really close to the viewer, but it doesn't really mix with how the organization of shapes are in your composition. We also want to, as a revision of this assignment, make sure to activate the mask layer so that it crops off the areas of your composition that are outside of the background format. And Samantha, let's take a look at yours. You want to add in the name of your harmony in the white space. So if it's complementary, if it's a tetrad, add that in there so that we have the name of the harmony. Palettes look good, as I was mentioning. In week 6, you want to move to 32 colors, so doubling the amount of colors that you have, which means that you can have even more tense shades and tones. Looking at the two compositions, I think the bottom one's working the best because we aren't losing the moon shapes on the right side of the design. I want you to continue to take risks and really push the composition. I feel like this shape here should be much larger in your composition, and then maybe you could do some overlapping of the shapes around the edge, so that they're spaced a little bit more evenly. We have some that are overlapping and some that aren't, so we want to make sure that they are all either equally overlapping or all equally spaced. And they feel pretty tight here, so they're kind of hugging the edge of the composition, but we don't have that over here. Maybe you want to think about spreading them out more in an oval shape so that they come to the edge of the composition evenly on all sides.